To make these tentacles, you will need a yarn. This is a double crochet on the thicker side, 100% acrylic. I have a crochet hook 3mm. I have a knitting needle cut off 3mm. I have a darning needle blunt, and I have a pair of scissors. And the end part will be worked here. And we're first going to create the 8 legs in one section, and then we are going to join them and work until the middle. And when they are finished, they will look like this, and they will be attached to the little octopus head or pumpkin head very firmly. So here, let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So let's get started on the first tentacle. I'm going to leave a 40cm tail, which I will use later for sewing the tentacles to the head of the octopus. We're starting off with a slip knot. Wrap around your finger, my hook, go and fetch the yarn and bring it through. I'm not going to be working with the tail, so I put that aside. I'm working with the long yarn. Slip knots on the wrong way, so reposition that. And I'm going to chain 1. Taking my needle, they're both 3mm, sticking the needle into the slip knot, and then the yarn will always be behind the needle, the hook will always be in the front of the needle, and that creates the stitch. I fetch the yarn, I pull it through, the yarn goes behind the needle, the hook goes in front of the needle, fetch the yarn, pull it through. So it's behind, fetch, pull through, 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 behind, fetch, pull through. I think you're getting the idea. I am making 35 stitches, loops, whatever you want to call them, per tentacle. So I'll meet you at the end. So just continue until you've got 34. And pause. 31, 32, 33, 34. Now the 35th, because my pattern is 35, and then what I do is I add a chain. Put the yarn behind the needle, position my hands differently now, and now I'm going to be working the loops / stitches off the needle. It is a tentacle, so therefore there will be 2 single crochet US terms per loop. I go in, fetch the yarn, bring it out, and the loop has automatically fallen off the needle. My thumb is holding the rest of them in place. I finish that single crochet, I go back into the loop, I make another single crochet, US terms. And I do that with the next loop. So it goes in, as it fetches it, it will fall off the needle, finish that single crochet, go back into that loop, and create the next single crochet. This will give the twist to the tentacle. In fact, there are 2 single crochet per loop. See, that loop is basically what your chain, if you were making a long chain, that loop is basically part of your chain. But This method gives an absolutely gorgeous finish. Unlike a chain, this one has an edge that is identical. You won't be able to tell the difference afterwards. The edge of the top of your work is identical to the edge at the bottom of your work. Now this is a tentacle, but if you were doing one single crochet per loop, when you were finished, you would have difficulty telling which was the top and which was the bottom. It is also easier to manage when you have so many loops. It's easier to manage them. Your fingers are not trying to hold a chain. Instead, your hand is holding a needle. And they come off, the loops come off the needle as you need them. This is the first tentacle. The next tentacle will be a continuum from the first one. You don't cut the yarn, which means that all 8 tentacles will be joined in one continuum. I am busy working on a different version where I start off with a crocheted disc or circle, and I add the tentacles to that disc. And so by the time I'm finished all 8 tentacles, they will be on a disc, and then that disc will be attached to the body of the octopus. I just wanted to complete this video of, for want of a better word, version 1. So now I'm come to the end, and these last 5, 4 or 3 or 2 as you wish, I'm going to add 1 single crochet. It almost makes it like a jellyfish tentacle. In jellyfish tentacles, which can also be made for preemies or babies or whatever, you would do probably 1/2 or 1/3 in single crochet per loop, and then the rest would be a tentacle. I like this because it allows, when you're working it onto the body, you're not fighting these loops all the time. So there we go. That's the beginning. That's the first tentacle done. Yes, sometimes they do twist in different directions, but that's just the nature of it. They will start to they will find their own. They have their own personality tentacles. So I'm going to now start the second tentacle, and it'll be a carbon copy of this first one. So chain 1, slip your needle into that primary loop, which is the equivalent of your slip knot when you started here, and you'll do exactly the same thing. Yarn to the back, hook to the front, 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 whoops, yarn to the back, hook to the front, 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 yarn to the back. See, it does that sometimes. Hook to the front, down to the back, to the front, and so on and so on. But you'll get a rhythm. And just continue until you have 8 tentacles. So here we are. I have my 8 tentacles in a row. As you can see, because the last few stitches on each tentacle only had 1 single crochet in it, it gives me space to work. I am going to be making single crochet all the way back. It is not necessary to go into every single loop that you see, because we actually want to decrease. When we get there, we're going to join, and we want to work in a circle, and we want to decrease. So I'm just going to chain 1, and then coming backwards, across my work, I'm picking up loops here and there. As I said, it's not imperative that you go into every single one. What you just want to make sure is that your tentacles are lying flat. You don't erroneously twist it in such a way that you're now working on the, like if you twist it like this and you're not careful, it's like all twisted up. No, make sure they're nice and flat. Sometimes I'm catching 1 loop. Sometimes I'm catching 2. There's also 1. There's another 1. Sometimes I was catching 2. I could feel it. Oh, it's twisting a bit. What is it doing? Untwist it. There's 2. There's 1. If you have a meticulous nature, you might want to look very carefully at the structure of each tentacle and then make sure that you're picking them up evenly. But I'm not too worried about it. So now I've come to the end, and I want to join it. When it's sewn to the body, I will neaten up this little edge here. Remember my tail there for my starters there? I'll be using that to neaten it up. For now, I just want to join it. This is a bit fiddly. I'm still working on what is the best way to do it. I was actually wondering whether first crocheting a disc and then adding the tentacles to that, but the problem with that is sometimes you can end up with a space, or you can end up with not having enough space to put your tentacles on, and then you have 7 tentacles instead of 8. So I'm just going to slip stitch it. There we go. And then looks funny because my fingers are underneath. And yet, so what I'm going to do every now and then, I'm going to slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, and then pull the yarn through, because remember we want to decrease. There's a fairly large hole, so I'll slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2. Yes, it is fiddly, but it goes very quickly. I'm also working behind a camera, so there we go. I'm just going one single crochet, and then I'm doing a decrease, which is a slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, pull the yarn through all 3 loops. Okay, there comes a point you can even just cut it and pull the yarn through and pull that little ring in. I'm not quite there yet. Slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2. I think I'm going to do another slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2. Because remember, these little tentacles are actually also going to be hiding the hole created there. It looks a bit like that. So there's quite a lot happening. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I don't want to do any more, otherwise it's just going to start making a funnel. I'm going to cut a long tail, 40 centimeters. And then the darning needle, this is a blunt one. I'm going to go through this loop here. And I want to close that off. So I'm just going to pick up some random loops. And that's going to pull in. As I said, this is still a design in progress. And sometimes it takes you to make quite a few of them to keep on tweaking the pattern until, as you can see, this is fiddly, and I don't like fiddly. I like things to be streamlined. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. When I sew them onto the body, I can focus a bit more on that. And also, with the last one, it was a question of, did I want my tentacles? Because your tentacles have two different, they behave in 2 different ways. Because of the way that they curl, you can have the tentacles going up, or you can have the tentacles going down. Look at that. See? So you can decide what you want. The other one, this one here, I made the tentacles going up. So, which means that they automatically are going to flare more. If you put them on a table, he will do that. If you hold them up, there's quite a big gap there. But if you have your tentacles going the other way, then the tentacles will always tend to gather in a group. See, compared to that. Play around, see what you like more. And yeah. So there we go. This is what he's going to look like when he's finished. And there are more videos in the playlist with this little octopus.